Warren.
That is the most sedate intro I've ever had on my channel. Welcome,
Wake up.
everybody. Wake up, everybody. I didn't mean to put you to sleep. Oh,
Odin sleep. Sorry.
yeah. Shh. Yes, welcome, JL, Charlie, Patrick,
Hello.
friends. Yes, we're friends right now. We'll see after this episode what happens. Like, who knows? But as you saw in the thumbnail, we're here to talk about the worst movie sequels ever. And it's all Patrick's fault because Patrick challenged us. And we couldn't all decide. So here, now you guys got to help us because we all think we have the one.
Well, I challenge you because I know I've got the one. I know there's only one winner here. I know there's only one. That's why I put the challenge out. I've got my mortgage on this.
And it's me. So just...
I know. You see, chat, you see YouTube. This is why we're here, because of that. Because no one can actually decide, and so we all have one, and we would like to talk to you each about our one for a little bit, and then discuss it, and then we're going to leave it up to you, the chat. If you're here, you get to vote, and I'm sure YouTube will vote later on the back of the video and tell us how we got everything wrong or right. But we hope you will actually contribute because it'll be a lot more fun.
And this is not subjective. This is science.
It can be measured. Two right.
Yeah.
Which is why the outcome's predetermined, and I'm, clearly I've won. This is a test of whether the audience have the ability to properly assess. Because if they don't say it's me that's won, they need to go away and they need to think about the decisions they've made.
You see, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take this as the opportunity. This is the opportunity that I didn't have against FTFE, because FTFE challenged people to a DC versus Marvel debate, and I accepted that challenge. And he never ever debated me. He debated somebody else, and I was kind of like, son. And I watched that debate, and the correct winner won. That was correct. Marvel won because Marvel will always win. But I was like, it should have been me, and I had it all set up. So now I get my revenge. Now I'm coming here and lay the authority down.
Yes and no, because we're actually going to let them just go with their opinion. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, chat, you don't need a scrap of evidence. I don't care what these two mojos just said. No, you don't need a scrap of evidence to tell us how you actually feel about this. Because how can you actually have evidence and actually try to prove a point like this without like just all the emotions in the way the movie made you feel?
Oh, that's where technical knowledge comes in. That's where understanding how the sausage is made can really.
JL knows the sausage with movies.
I know
I
get
the
that.
sausage.
I get about the sausage, but when it comes down to it, is it not about the people who are actually watching it because they're buying the ticket? So it's about how, regardless of how that sausage got made, it's about whether you get a stomach ache when you eat the damn sausage. Okay, so like I'm saying, it's more about the end product and what how it landed, because no matter how good they are, and mine will actually show that. Like, we had some expert people there in it, and I'm sure all of yours did too. They probably have heavy hitters in it and all of that, and a great premise. Because to be a sequel, just the word sequel itself means there was a very successful one before it in something
most
that
of the
really
time,
hit the
yeah.
market, right? Yeah. So, did we draw straws? Like, who's going for? I forgot who's going.
I thought we were going to ask the chat. The chat were going to tell us.
Yeah, we are going to ask the chat. Okay, chat. Whose movie do you want to hear about first? You can play favorites all you want.
Let's do this. 1 for Claire, 2 for me, being Charlie, 3 for JL, and 4 for Patrick. The way they are on the screen.
Don't be shy, people. We're not going to judge you about it. And I promise I'm not going to let Patrick, JL, or Charlie come for you later.
and don't allow your decision to be affected by the presence or lack thereof of an accent.
This is true. Yes, I do have an unfair advantage. Those thousands of accents I use from like being the millions of people that I am. Yes, I get it. Oh, okay. Charlie's got the first vote. Okay.
Claire got a vote.
Oh, Patrick, you voted for me. I think that's strategic. I don't know if we should go with that. I think he's playing me here. Okay. Oh gosh. Looks. Oh, Charlie, this is.
What?
I'm being set up. I'm being set up. Hey, student, it's nice to see you.
I'm a
All
crowd
right.
follower.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
You're
Keenan's
up.
gone for
You're
you as
up,
well.
Claire. You're
And,
up.
All
here,
Claire.
and the missed opportunity. Nobody has put 8675309. Come on, y'all. Where's that? That's a missed opportunity. It looks like everybody wants you to go first, Claire.
It does, and so let's just do
Chivalry
it.
lives.
All right, let's just do it. I don't have a fancy video or anything, but I'm just going to take up your time with a few visuals because, might as well, right? Mine, yes, gave me a headache. Actually gave me a stomach ache. Blues Brothers 2000. Okay. Blues Brothers is epic. Okay. Blues Brother is a classic. Nobody could argue that was the best musical comedy musical. Black suits, black glasses, really cool. The soundtrack to die for. Okay. Sorry. The soundtrack for Blues Brothers 1 was amazing. The soundtrack for Blue Brother 2000 is the only saving grace. And I say that in all honesty, this is exactly how I feel. I found nothing about this sequel to save it at all, except the soundtrack. So, to get to the conclusion before the actual summation of everything, I would just say, don't even watch it. Just get the soundtrack. I mean, that would be the only best way that anybody could have spent their money. From the original, we still have Elwood in it. Of course, everyone knows that the other main character was Jim Belushi. Jim Belushi from Saturday Night Live, and he had passed away. They made this sequel 18 years after the fact. If it takes you 18 years to get the funding and to get people on board, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. The same year that it came out, they also did a behind the scenes, the making of the Blues Brother. It was obviously some type of marketing hook, trying to get the franchise going again with it. They kept the suits, they kept the glasses. Look at the poster. The reason I'm holding my head, the only original character from the series in the poster is Elwood, and that's Dan Aykroyd. Now, Dan Aykroyd did a decent job, and so did, Landis, as far as, trying to keep the storyline and kind of the vibe that it was. It is still about getting the band together. It is still about doing a good deed, but it all falls flat. Well, now they're throwing dogs at you and kids at you and like sappy stories. The whole band is practically dead. And by the way, they actually addressed the death of one of the lead characters from the original by just a side mention. Here they are both in jail. Everybody knows at the end of the original movie, they're in jail, right? They finally have to serve time for all their amusing misdeeds. But they go to jail. He gets out, Elwood, Dan Aykroyd gets out, and then he finds out that his brother's dead. Like, nobody came to visit him in jail and tell him. Like, nobody, like, they were like in solitude or something. Like, nobody actually, like, there was such right from the start, gave me this, like, you're not even going to fill in all the holes. You're not even trying to tell a good story here. They just washed it away.
And you kept watching it, though, didn't you?
No, actually, well, yes and no. Yes and no. Like, yeah, I would admit to probably doing other things while it was on the original time that I watched it, like chores or something, because like it just kept annoying me. And so I went back and watched it again to make sure I still felt the same. I watched them all. Like, I had a list of 10. This one won out because it was the most disappointing. I loved the original so much that just the fact that they made this and what they did to it was just the overwhelming sense of disappointment was something I just couldn't handle. And that's why on the beginning, I just want to explain that the reason we say overrated, okay, is like, just do definitions here, like rated or valued too highly. Just because the title said Blues Brothers, that was about the most highly rated part of this whole movie, was that the title kept it so that you knew it was related to the other one. Besides that, it had the same lead person, Dan Aykroyd, playing Elroy, it was kind of gonna be leaning in that direction. No. The only way you knew it was actually the storyline was the Blues Brothers. The music was all the great. They tied that in. They did try. I'll say that, but it fell completely flat. All of the musical numbers, you could tell they were coming a mile away. In the original, it appeared through some magical filmmaking that it was spontaneous. We all know it wasn't, but the feel of it, the way you reacted to it was like, boom, it just happened. It isn't that great. It kind of tickled you. It made you happy, you know? This time, every time I knew a musical number was coming, because you could see it like from a mile away, that here's the spot for the musical number. Here they go. It was just like, oh God, here we go.
Gaffer tape on the floor.
Here we
Dance
go. Here we go. I was looking for it, Charlie. I'll admit, I was looking for the damn tape. I was looking for the cues and the slaps because it was that obvious it was on the way. It was the one thing I hate the most about sequels is when you can tell it's just a slap together. It actually appeared, no offense, but well, maybe it's going to be offensive anyway. It actually looked lazy. It actually looked at the work they put into it, as far as the writing, as far as the directing, as far as the cinematography. It was all lazy. It was lazy, lazy, lazy. And the amount of heavy hitters that they put in it to try to carry it over as far as musically, everybody's there. James Brown, Aretha Franklin, they're all still there. Okay. Everybody's doing walk-ins and all, but that doesn't actually sell a movie. Now that may sell some tickets because people like that kind of stuff, but as far as the sequel, it made it a flop. It's definitely making it a flop also because in the long run they had a larger budget than the original. They had $30 million to make this. Okay. And I'm just going to let that play while I talk in the background. They had $30 million. And you can see it feels the same. Okay. They only pulled in 32. They only pulled in $32 million. They made $2 million. They had to pay Aretha Franklin, all of these musicians to come in and do this. You see the little kid, it just seemed so fake to me and staged. They did, however, do one cool thing. They did actually beat by one demolished car the record from the original Blues Brothers, because we all remember, if you remember the original movie, they had so many car pileups and accidents. And that was very dramatic in the beginning. Lots of scenes like this where Elwood gets to be a little funny and John Goodman did a great job for what it was. I have nothing bad to say about John Goodman because just that he picked up the mantle and tried to do it, I give him great applaud for that. I also think that there was no way everybody was going to like it because he was in it anyway. But he's a fantastic actor. He's great with improv. He can sing. He did the best he could. But I still think the whole thing failed. Those were all the heavy hitters. This is just ridiculous, the amount of money that they put in here. And it still actually flopped. More money than the original, and they still couldn't pull it off. Because basically, they just tried to copy the original without having, shall I say, any originality. Okay? That's where I'm going to say. They had no originality. It's all a repeat. They threw a kid in there, but the kid is still saying the same lines. You can find them from the movie before. The same kind of scenarios are still going on here and there. They just moved some of the players because most of the band is dead as they tried to get them back together. And they throw a sad line in there with the orphanage that they went out of their way to save has closed anyway. The whole movie ends up with, like, no matter what you did in the first movie, it's all gone now. And they should have left it at that instead of trying to make the sequel carry on a different line. Like this quote here, which I am going to read, but I didn't write. The difference between the two Blues Brothers movies can be summed up simply. The original 1980 release worked as a musical in a comedy, and the 1998 installment functions as a musical masquerading as a comedy. That is to say, the songs are still great fun, but the level of humor has dropped off considerably. And I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. And I think if you watched it, you would too. But this is why, I don't know if I took up my whole 10 minutes, but this is why Blues Brothers 2000 gave me a headache and a stomach ache. I'm disappointed. I'm very, very disappointed in this movie.
Audience,
All right.
Claire wrote that quote herself. Don't buy it.
I did not. It's on YouTube. It's on Google. I didn't do it.
Sounds
Nope,
like a
wasn't
great
me.
movie. Sounds like
No.
a brilliant movie. I love it. I want to watch that movie.
I'm watching
You
it after
do.
we're done here.
I'm pretty damn
Okay.
sure that thing swept at like the 72nd Oscars, you know?
No, it didn't. And actually, they only and you, just to show you what a flop it was, they destroyed 103 cars in the original. They only destroyed 104 in the sequel. Like when I say lazy, I'm telling you lazy because like King of Cobra, Joe, like the G.I. Joe movie, actually beat them out afterwards. Okay, and I think right now the actual this is just a little tidbit for you all because I know I get nerdy about these stuff. I'm just gonna expose my inner nerd here, but actually the last Transformers movie from 2022 actually has the biggest number right now, the record for most cars destroyed while making the movie at 532. So when I say low effort, I'm talking low effort. They only beat it by one.
Michael Bay destroyed them all in slow motion.
I did in slow motion, right? But shouldn't a sequel actually have to like double your effort? I mean, if it's a sequel, you're already under the wire that nobody's gonna look. The expectation is there. Great expectation is there. You need
Either increasing effort or at least, at the very least, follow what the first one did and pick it up. And
exactly. And I think they might have tried, but hey, everybody was not with the film. Most of the characters had passed on. Yeah.
Who's next?
Yeah. Who would you guys like to hear from next? Now that you made me go first, chat, and also my panel members here all made me go first. That's not fair.
Nobody volunteering?
No one is volunteering. Okay, go. Okay, Charlie. Let me put up your thing. Then you sure you don't want to go next, Patrick? Jo? No.
I'm 3.
Oh.
Hang on. No. JL's 3, isn't he?
Okay, so
Oh, you
JL.
want me to go?
Yeah, Patrick has voted for you a lot in the chat. I think just for that, because he had to type it about 8 or 9 times. I think you have to go now.
So it's okay. So 1 second. All right. So I've got this, and I've got my screen to share. I'm just going to share something. So let me know when my time begins, or I'll guess I'll.
Oh,
It began 8 minutes ago. You have 2 minutes. Go.
Very funny. Okay. So, in a world of terrible sequels, lurking amidst the detritus-clogged deluge of sloppily re-edited first films, desperate ego projects, and obvious cash grabs, one sequel amongst them all will rise to the claggy surface as the worst sequel of them all. Yes, surging above the likes of Troll 2, Batman and Robin, Jaws the Revenge, Son of the Mask, Dumb and Dumberer, When Harry Met Lloyd, and even Mortal Kombat Annihilation. This stinker leaves them all behind as the apex predator of audiences' patience, time, and money. And that movie is, of course, let me share my screen.
Can you get it up there?
Yep. Get it up.
Thank you.
And it's not letting me put it up on this.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Highlander 2: The Quickening.
Dun, dun.
Oh, that was on my list. Shit.
Highlander 2 is a sequel so maligned that often fans of the franchise will tongue-in-cheek refuse to acknowledge that it even exists, expressing with dumbfounded befuddlery how the franchise inexplicably jumped from the quintessential Highlander to Highlander 3: The Sorcerer. From top to bottom and all ways round, Highlander 2 misses every single possible mark, and in doing so, casts a sickly pall upon what started as an incredible sci-fi adventure fantasy film series. Director Mulcahy, who previously worked with original writer Gregory Wyden on the first film, solo runs the franchise to a spectacular low, eschewing every story element that made the previous film a sweeping sci-fi classic in favor of a broken film with brick through a plate glass window environmental messaging, backdropped by a plodding, badly timed, and poorly lit broken Shakespearean mishmash of post-apocalypse, dystopian science fiction, buddy comedy, fish out of water, steampunk, fantasy, and slapstick genres. Retconning the original story, our beloved immortals are now well, they're immortal now, but they're not. They're aliens, and whether they're immortal or not, who knows? And they possess a backstory so convoluted that even to hear Virginia Madsen's sexy terrorist Louise explain it cannot salvage this. Gone is the wonderful sacrificial bromance and witty repartee between Connery's Ramirez and Lambert's McLeod in favor of bumbling Mr. Magoo turned reluctant superhero and a Scottish space alien Crocodile Dundee marveling at the wonders of the 21st century. And in probably the worst villain disrespect of all time is the slapsticky zaniness of General Katana, a faded carbon copy of the Kurgan that can't even be saved by the energy and charisma of legendary character actor Michael Ironside, who is constantly surrounded by Bud Court-style villains flying all over the place. In the end, Highlander 2 takes a massive Cleveland steamer on the film that birthed it, and even its director and cast have long agreed that the film is an absolute abomination. When it comes to terrible sequels, many came before and many will come after, but in the history of them all, there truly can be only one. And that one is, hang on a sec, what film was I talking about again?
Brilliant.
I think that's the best thing. Oh, that's amazing.
Are you finished? I'm gonna take that. Is that it? Like, we lost. JL used words. Like, we're done.
Yeah, the first movie is so damn good. So good.
That was brilliant.
Yeah.
I loved Highlander. I don't know. I can't wait for the discussion part now. But chat, tell us. We got Charlie and Patrick left. Who do you want to throw up there next?
Blech.
Come on, let me see.
Pick a number between 1 and 10, Patrick.
Yeah,
I know
I don't even
thinking.
know what number I am now. So
Just pick the number because it's wrong.
4.
I'm going.
6.
You're 4. All right, Charlie.
You
wait,
were
let me
number
put you through.
4. You were number 4, but you're number 1 in our hearts.
Oh,
Yes.
hey man,
Oh,
thank you,
speak
JR.
for
That means
yourself,
a lot.
JR.
They're all saying Patrick. I see 2 Patricks. I see 3 Patricks.
Okie dokie.
Okay.
Right. Well, before it gets pulled up, because I believe I've got 10, and I put a video together for this, mainly because I just want to release the video on my old channel.
The worst
Whoops.
scene.
Oh no, it's up.
No,
The
do
video-
you want it up?
Not just yet. I just want to say the video is 7 minutes long, so when it's finished, I do want to justify why I think it's it's the worst of all time. But Claire, when you are ready, off you go.
There will only ever be one champion. A movie that in its own right is awful, but considering the brilliance of its predecessor, simply has no right to exist at all.
That movie is, of course, The Exorcist 2. And here's what William Friedkin, the director of the original Exorcist movie, had to say about this absolute atrocity.
And now I'm going to tell you the story of the first screening of Exorcist 2. 10 minutes into the picture, a guy stood up in the audience. He stood up and he looked around and he said, "The people who made this piece of shit are in this room."
To understand why The Exorcist 2 was such an insult to everybody who laid their eyes on it, let's just take 2 minutes to remind ourselves of why The Exorcist was such a success. Now, The Exorcist will always be remembered as a horror film, but deep down at its core, it was a drama packed full of characters that we could care for and relate to. At the start of the movie, Reagan presented herself as a sweet, innocent, happy young girl. But her interactions with the Ouija board told us that she got to that age where she started to question the concept and the nature of death itself. Reagan's mother on the outside was a highly successful actress, but on the inside she was well aware that her daughter was growing and maturing, and she was racked with guilt that she couldn't be there for her as much as she wanted to be. She was also obviously extremely lonely in the absence of Reagan's father. We meet Father Karras at a very low point in his life. His faith has deserted him just at the time when he needed it. His mother is about to pass and he knows it. And then we have Father Merrin. Whatever past battles he's had with this demon has left him scarred and frightened. When he learns that the demon has returned, he's clearly shaken, and I don't believe that he ever truly thought that he was going to survive this next encounter. The film does a great job of fleshing these characters out, and as it progresses, it's not the jump scares that make this film scary. What truly makes it scary is we've grown to understand what's driving the characters surrounding Reagan, and we can empathise with them and truly feel the horror and the terror that must be inside them as they are witnessing the transformation of Reagan. And I really think that the scariest parts of the film are imagining what is going through the mind of the poor mother. The twisting head and the vomit are just the icing on the cake.
And there we have it. The Exorcist was an absolute 1 in a million film. The more we invested ourselves into it, the more we got out of it. Now, I think it's also fair to say that The Exorcist 2 was also a 1 in a million film, but for many, many other reasons. Let's take a look at this shit show, shall we? Now, if the first Exorcist film was a good drama dressed up as a horror, then Exorcist 2 The Heretic was a comedy dressed up as a sci-fi movie. The film starts off at least trying to be a sequel to the original before completely spinning off the rails, and shows us Father Lamont investigating the death of Father Merrin from the first film. This leads him to visit young Regan, who's now obviously a little bit older, who's suffering from mental health problems and has repressed memories due to the trauma that she experienced in the first film. So far so good, you might at least think, but here's where the film really decides to shit the bed. You see, after meeting Regan's doctor, for some reason Father Lamont connects himself to her via some bullshit made-up device called a synchronizer that allows him to experience some kind of shared hypnosis. This complete sci-fi nonsense belongs in films like The Matrix or Inception, and it's totally at odds with the grounded tone that was created by the first film. Anyway, somehow this weird shared hypnosis with Regan's doctor makes Father Lamont want to go and visit the house that Regan was possessed in. Now, maybe I'm oversimplifying things, but if it was me and I was investigating Father Merrin's death, I think I might have decided on my own to go to the house where Regan was possessed. I don't think I would have needed the help of a bullshit device called a synchronizer or some kind of joint hypnotic experience with Regan's new doctor. Now, after visiting the house, he decides he's just got to go back and connect to Regan herself using the synchronizer. Now, this connection, and I swear I'm not making any of this shit up, causes Father Lamont to travel back in time, and when he arrives at his destination, lo and behold, he's witnessing a young Father Merrin exorcise a demon for the first time. Now, it turns out the demon is called Pazuzu, and it manifests itself as a swarm of locusts. The young boy who Father Merrin is exorcising is called Kokomu, and after Kokomu's exorcism, guess what? He goes on to find himself a career as a scientist in pest control. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. And we also learned that one way we can fight Pazuzu the demon when he's manifesting as locust is to get a piece of wood on a piece of string and swing it around your head. That's going to come in really important for the end of the movie. Anyway, Lamont suddenly snaps back to the present, decides it's a good idea to go to Africa and meet the adult version of Kokumo. Now there he learns that Regan has some kind of magical psychic powers gifted to her by God, which is why Pazuzu wants to possess her. And coincidentally, back in the real world, Regan is just about to use her newly found psychic powers to help a young mute girl speak.
Can you hear me, Mother? She's talking.
Now, Father Lamont travels back to America and takes Regan to the house where the events of the original movie unfolded. Now, worried for the safety of Regan, Regan's doctor, Dr. Tuskin, and her guardian, a lady called Sharon, decide to get a taxi and follow them to the house. For no reason whatsoever, the taxi driver decides to kill himself by driving the taxi into the house, and Sharon sets herself on fire. Why? Pfft, who fucking cares? Now, Pazuzu also turns up and turns herself into an evil version of Regan. Father Lamont decides he wants to have sex with the evil version of Regan.
Be joined with us, Father.
No.
Then he decides he wants to murder the good version of Regan.
Why me? Why me?
Then he decides he really wants to murder the evil version of Regan. And then at this point I wasn't really sure what was going on, but I think the evil version of Regan decided to become a swarm of locusts again. Now at this point, even though we all know that it wasn't Regan who travelled back in time and saw that little trick with the piece of wood on a piece of string, she appears to know exactly what to do, and she fights off Pazuzu herself, something she probably could have done all along. Now, if my review of Exorcist 2, The Heretic, made it sound like the film made no sense, it's because the film made no sense. Go and watch it as a comedy and you'll see what I mean. And by the end of it, I'm sure you'll all be in no doubt whatsoever that the worst sequel of all time is The Exorcist 2. Now, by my reckoning, I still must have about 2 minutes to go, so I'm going to use this, right? The reason that The Exorcist 2 was so bad is because The Exorcist 1 was so good. The Exorcist 2 had no right to exist whatsoever. The Exorcist 1 left, excuse me, it left an imprint
on everybody's heart, on everybody's soul. It meant something. It stood for something. It was a brilliant piece of filmmaking. And The Exorcist 2 turned it into a science fiction comedy. It's like taking Pride and Prejudice and turning it into some kind of horror film. It was a completely different genre of film that completely changed the nature of Reagan. The caring mother from the first film wasn't even in this one. The mother that loved her child so much and would do anything for a child couldn't even be bothered in this film to pick up the phone and have a conversation with her. It was I don't know what to say. The two films bear no resemblance to each other, except for the fact that they have some of the same actors in it. And that is all I can say. It had no right to exist whatsoever. And it was so bad. And I think this is going to be my parting shot. It was so bad that when they made The Exorcist 3, just like when they made Highlander 3, so I'll give you this one, JL, they pretended that sequel never existed. And I will also apologize for my language in that video as well. I kind of forgot that it was going out on a channel where there's no bad language. But...
No, what do you mean no bad? Have you not seen my content? What do you mean no bad language? Like,
I think I overdid I dropped an F-bomb, you know.
Oh, gee.
It's all right. I picked it up.
Okay, there you go. Like, nobody vote for Patrick. Like, see, okay, he dropped an F-bomb. No, of course. No, that's allowed, of course. Like, good job, though. Yeah, good job. Great video.
Thank you.
I don't know. We only have Charlie. Charlie, are you ready? Are you ready?
Yeah, I get to follow up the amazing vocabulary dance.
I know.
Of JL
we have been
outworded
and out-visualized, Charlie, but you're not alone.
Scared. I'm not scared.
I'm here with you. Don't be afraid, dude. We're amongst friends. Let's see. Okay, you ready? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
There you go.
Bum, bum, bum. I picked Passion of the Christ 2. No.
What? No!
Right.
You're such an asshole.
Hopefully we have in the chat, we're all old enough to know the original. You know, that was in 1984 and holds a very special place in my heart. The only childhood movie that's more important is probably Princess Bride. Really, I love The Never-Ending Story. And if you haven't seen it, I mean, you probably wouldn't enjoy it as an adult, but your kids might, because it kind of holds up. Like, I will never forget my entire first grade class bawling to the heavens as one. The bullies, the geeks, all of us despondent as Atreyu couldn't save his horse from the swamp. Artax, I think his name was. Fight the sadness, Artax! And it was a very colorful but very dark children's movie, in my opinion, with some pretty heavy subject matter. I guess the back of the DVD box or the VHS box would probably say, a kid gets chased into a bookstore by bullies and is thrown into an amazing story after he borrows a special book and reads it alone in the attic, and adventures ensue. But we're here for sequels, aren't we? So I think part 2 came out 6 years later, so I was 10 years old, still interested, and extremely let down. It's just unforgivably different in every single way from the original, from the characters and cinematography all the way through to the soundtrack, the score, everything. So the sequel finds the main character from the first one again, whose name's Sebastian. And in the original, he's kind of an edgy, kind of a tormented kid with a dying mom and adventurous spirit, and you cheer for him the whole time. But you fast forward to the next installment, and we get a Sebastian played by, I can't remember his name right now, Jonathan Landis, I believe.
I think it is Jonathan Landis, yeah.
And this kid struggles with Velcro and is basically a stumbling dolt in a Sesame Street movie. And the plot fails miserably to thicken as Sebastian gets the same book at the same bookstore, and we rinse and repeat. And bookstore is a miracle in itself, honestly, being its only customer appears to be, a kleptomaniac kid and still doesn't install cameras to stop anything. But there are some good recurring characters like you had in Blues Brothers, such as my favorite Rockbiter, the giant, super depressed rock man. and Falcor, the stretched out poodle dragon dog, the luck dragon that he rides in the first one. That's his most important sidekick. But they're pretty blurred out by some very over the top, ridiculous Jim Henson rejects, like the one on screen now, Nimbly. Just look at that. Look at the laziness in the costume, the human eyes. That's just disturbing as hell. It's like, I think some orange paint, or I don't even know. JL would know how to hide that, but God, that's just bad. And they did spend some money on it. It's pretty obvious. But Sebastian, even in the sequel, even overlooks Falcor, probably the most iconic, recognizable character from the first one. He overlooks him for a new, I don't think it's called a luck dragon, but a new creature that he can ride somewhere that actually smells like shit. He chooses this thing above Falcor temporarily, but he does get back to Falcor. And it basically breaks down to a 3 wishes story, like we've all heard a million times. And I didn't even see the third one because the second one was so bad. And
Was it third?
I think so, yeah. And even strapping on nostalgia glasses just won't mask the odor of this pile. And I wish I had some videos just to show just how hokey it was. I hope everybody in the chat has seen the first one at least, because even just the still frame before that of that character looked like nothing from Neverending Story. This slide, however, does give you the feel from the original. It's pretty dark and colorless, but that's just one scene out of the movie. The whole rest of the movie is just a puppet show, really. And that's where my time ends.
Okay.
Sounds like a great movie, man. Great movie.
Yeah.
So I thought now we're supposed to talk amongst ourselves in the chat as to why we think one or the other should win. But should I put the poll up now? What do you guys think?
Well, has everybody on panel seen all the movies?
Yes.
I've saw them all.
Yes.
Yep. Me too.
Yeah.
But I do have a question though, and this goes out to you, Charlie. You said you didn't see the Neverending Story 3.
Correct.
I have. And the Neverending Story 3 does not ignore, I'm just throwing this out there, does not ignore the events of Neverending Story 2. Would I be correct in that?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
In that case, I'll just say it doesn't. just say it doesn't, because
no.
See, with me and there hasn't been a sequel to Blues Brothers 2000, so it's awkward for Claire. But JL's when JL chose Highlander 2, that was a great one, because when Highlander 3 came out, it had to completely pretend Highlander 2 never happened. It was never mentioned again.
Right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
When the Exorcist 3 came out, again, it just completely pretended the Exorcist 2 never happened. And I'm just throwing this out there for the chat, but I think
that does do. All right, I see where he's going with this, everyone. He's saying that leads credence to why it's the worst, because the actual people producing it are pretending it doesn't exist. And I would say, in the defense of Blues Brothers being the absolute worst, it's because he tried again for another 10 years to get funding to do a third or anything else with it, including a series, and there were no bites. So I would say, just because the industry didn't sell on board for it, that actually speaks even more volumes than the fact that they're ignoring number 2 for number 3. But anyway.
I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. What do you think, JL? The absolute wiping of a movie from canon is a pretty rare event, isn't it?
That is extremely rare, because many franchises, no matter how bad they are, there will be diehard fans, and sometimes if a film is really really bad, it can gain a cult following. So for even there are even people out there who really like for example, like Neverending Story 2. There are a lot of people that really like it because they feel it went in the same direction as like the original Return to Oz with Faruka Balk, and because they love that darker tone that the film took, and it kind of like brought that nostalgia feel to it. Not to mention it was never ending story, so they can see these things. But for a franchise to start out universally loved and classic, like Exorcist, a classic horror film, Highlander, sweeping excellent sci-fi saga, and then for the sequel to be so maligned that when the third one comes along, everybody just acts like the middle child never happened, including like the director, the writer, all the cast. They're kind of like, wait, what are you talking about? We never did that. For that to go down is extremely unique. In fact, I mean, oftentimes I can't even really think, other than like Exorcist and Highlander, it's hard to find. It is sometimes, well, no, because there's been a resurgence popularity for Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, because people are seeing that in a new light. Because that used to be kind of like the bad child. People used to ignore that one, and they used to jump straight to Dream Warriors. So, you know, it's rare. It's so rare. It's a unique quality for something that's really, really terrible. The difference.
It's so rare, but all three of your movies is the same. So how rare could it be? Like if all three of you had the number 2.
Well,
out of
the millions of films that are out there, you know, of potential sequels, oftentimes, I mean, you know, you'll keep the canon going. Whereas Exorcist 2, The Heretic, I will give it that it actually tried to build off of the prior mythology set up in the first film. So it was a direct continuation. And then 3 just ignored it and just springboarded off of the first one in order to continue that storyline. Whereas the second film in the Highlander franchise completely retconned everything in the first film. It retconned the origin of the Immortals. It retconned the relationship between Ramirez and McLeod. It retconned all of that character building, all of that arc and training, and just said none of that matters. Essentially, Highlander 2 is like a brand new freaking movie that just like resets everything. And then Highlander 3 comes in and says, that was so fucking bad. We need to go back and we need to, go off of the first film and ignore 2 ever happened, because it tried to basically reestablish the whole mythology, and it did it so badly. So,
and granted, it is absolutely difficult to even come out with a sequel when a movie is that successful and that well loved. Of course, they want to, because it's been established that it's a good formula and they want to see it. But in most cases, aren't we all a little disappointed every time there's a number 2? It always lets us down. The original feel isn't there, no matter how hard they try. Like
Empire
more
Strikes
often.
Back.
Yeah,
Empire
more often.
Strikes Back.
I was going to say real quick, it might be worth trying to think of a really good sequel. Just real quick.
Like good ones are going to be like, obviously, like Godfather 2. Okay.
The Godfather series. You can't touch that. There's not a bad one in there.
Empire Strikes Back is obviously, in my opinion, is the best of the entire franchise. You've got Jaws 2, which I actually consider to be as good, if not stronger than the first one, because we didn't need to go through character arc development in the second film. We get into the chaos, which I really, really liked.
Now, is Jaws 2? Is that the revenge one? Is that the
one?
That's 4.
That's the fourth one.
Okay, because that one. That was the fourth one was on my list. Like that was a
then
pile
you look
of
at it like Terminator 2, fantastic. Friday the 13th 2, fantastic. And even nowadays you're getting a huge resurgence in people going back and looking at Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. That is a magnificent freaking film that is only now getting a real solid resurgence. There's lots of good sequels out there. And
the mummy one was pretty good too. They kind of followed the same thing. It wasn't as offensive. It didn't try to do anything astronomically different.
I'm going to suggest something controversial. I'm going to do something unexpected now, and I'm actually, even though I was convinced coming into this film that I was absolutely 100% correct, JL has convinced me, and I'll tell you why he's convinced me, right? In my sequel, we had the original actress who played Reagan, and she came into my sequel, but she wasn't in the third one, right?
Right.
Christopher
Linda
Lambert.
Blair,
Linda Blair, sorry. But Christopher Lambert, obviously he was original Highlander. He did go in, and Sean Connery, who was in flashbacks in the first one, they were both in that second film.
Right.
Both in that second film. And Christopher Lambert, as an actor, jumped on board with that film must have been rubbish. Let's just ignore. He actually came back for the third, and as the actor himself was happy to say, I ain't having anything to do with that. And he did Endgame, Highlander Endgame.
He did Highlander. He did Highlander 3 and Highlander 3 The Sorcerer, and then he did Highlander 4 Endgame, and then he did and then he helped to pass the baton to Adrian
Paul,
Adrian. So
obviously loved the series and loved the character and what he was doing, and just like didn't want anything to do with number two anymore. He wanted to fix it. Like obviously he stepped up.
His desires for a franchise where he played Raiden in the Mortal Kombat franchise kind of fizzled because that movie was
Well,
that is a good chat. Having the actor come back for the third one, having not done the first one, having done the first one, hating the second, but still come back for the third and say no. Like Linda Blair never came back for Exorcist 3. It's like, oh, she was done after that second one. It was bad. But to have the actor come back and even himself shun it shows that it must have been a stinker. Well, it was a stinker. I saw
that was the kicker. At least in Exorcist 2, the film, I will say, at least in Exorcist 2, the film attempted to extend the arcs of the characters that were established in the first film. It explored Reagan more. It kind of expanded the mythology. It explored all of the characters, not only in the aftermath, but in the coming conflict that came along in that film. And even in Neverending Story Part 2, Neverending Story Part 2 went in another direction, but at least tried to do something interesting and brought a darker tone in order to appeal to the audience that grew up watching the first film and was a little bit older and ready for more adult-themed fare, or I say young adult-themed fare that was in that film. Blues Brothers 2000 pretty much just ran off the nostalgia train. That's all it was trying to do, was run off that nostalgia. So that's what it had going for it, which is why there are diehards that really like that, because they appreciate what John Goodman brought to, but the essential Belushi role is what he did.
Right.
With Highlander 2, it was such a course correction. It was almost like, granny shifting in the franchise in and of itself. It disrespects everything that came before it. It disrespects the work of Connery. It disrespects the work of especially of Christopher Lambert, of friggin' Clancy Brown. Everybody who was involved in that, but no more so than the original writer, Gregory Wyden, whose entire mythology was essentially just thrown out the window for something completely different by two writers that were not even connected to Wyden in any way. And so they took his characters and they just shit all over them, and with no respect whatsoever. And then they just carbon copied a terrible carbon copy that even Michael friggin' Ironside couldn't save, because they couldn't come up with anything better than the Kurgan. Because Clancy Brown's the Kurgan, I think we can all agree, is one of the great sci-fi fantasy villains. It probably top 5. I would put the Kurgan up there with the likes of fucking, the Terminator and Darth Vader and, I got some others. But yes, the Kurgan was amazing because of Clancy Brown.
We should add that to the challenge list, like the villains. Yeah, but I actually agree with you. And, I definitely do. Part of the disappointment when you're watching a sequel is when they violate the story based on the characters from before. Everything you felt about them, how you like them and everything, and they just mangle it or just totally disregard them or just do something really offensive about it, which we saw is with Star Wars, which we saw with a few other things when we get new directors or the franchise moves on to other players. As a viewer, that is the most disappointing, I think. When they don't give enough regard, but then you can't give too much regard because you don't want a carbon copy. It's a fine balance, right? It is obviously not the easiest thing to do, just to have a successful sequel, because it has to be just enough new, but you have to honor all of the old, and you have to for it to be a true sequel. Don't you have to continue parts of it, expand the story a little bit, but keep the same feel and what people are expect, because expectation is the number one killer of sequels. Okay, not actually them following through with what the people are expecting to see. Almost all sequels get trashed when they first come out, don't they? Because everybody's disappointed. It isn't exactly what they thought it was going to be. They don't even get the privilege of being watched as a separate entity, for what it is themselves. So I put the poll up for everyone.
We got a tie right now.
Yeah, you got a tie between Charlie for Never Ending Story and JL for the Highlander 2.
I
Cats,
need this, Chad. JL beat me in a trivia contest.
this movie, Exorcist 2, actually got some votes. Blues Brothers, I'm getting trashed because the chat loved Blues Brothers 2000, and apparently my channel's getting taken down tomorrow because
See,
that's
an interesting take with films out there, like some of the ones I cited, like when you've got like Batman and Robin, okay,
right,
Schumacher, the greatest enemy Batman ever saw. You got Jaws: The Revenge, which was completely just like where they're the Son of the Mask. Mortal Kombat.
Oh God, that was so bad.
Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Now's your time to die. Shit like that. When you've got crap like that, I'm surprised you would go with such a nostalgia train, because
because you know why? And I explained it. The absolute amount as a viewer of disappointment I felt when they did it. It was 18 years later. It was 10 years after Belushi died. I didn't see. I was so disappointed in the end product. It was unnecessary to mess with the classic. I came when I looked at the list. The Mask 2 was on it. Highlander 2 was on it. Oh, every movie here that you guys are talking about were on my worst sequel list, and I went with gut and emotion. How much it bothered me that they even made this one, and then what they did as far as offend the original classic.
Mine's a little different because I remember actually wanting a sequel to Never Ending Story badly, and then got it.
I would say when Blues Brothers, the original one in the 80s, came out, I think everybody did want a sequel. And if it had happened in a timely manner, I think it would have been greatly successful.
See, whenever I watch Never Ending Story 2, I'm always reminded, like I always watch it. I'm like, it's not bad. You can see where the money went, and they did a fairly decent job. But I'm always reminded of Return to Oz, because that Return to Oz next to the original Never Ending Story were some of my earliest, as a child, some of my earliest entrances, or I would say, because I was single digits, were some of my earliest entrances to beginning to understand, more adult aspects of the world. So it was like, the darker aspects and the darker themes that were presented in Return to Oz, in Never Ending Story Part 2, Never Ending Story Part 2, and then of course stuff like Labyrinth and Dark Crystal and a number of other fantastic classics that that really, really helped us to grow. Legend, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I see is like a really solid attempt to kind of go in a direction that Return to Oz did, but unfortunately could not pull that off. And that's predominantly, in my mind, because they could not secure the original actor for Atreyu.
Or Sebastian, for that matter.
Yeah, they got Jonathan. They got Jonathan Brandis in, which Jonathan Brandis is an excellent actor, but he's picking it up and he took the character in a different direction, which I was
very different. Which I described.
And so it's kind of like a weird shock right there, and and then with a different actor to play Atreyu, because originally, if I remember correctly, that was Noah Hathaway, and because he was in the first Troll film as well. As Harry Potter Jr. But when they brought in Kenny Morrison, that just threw it all off. So,
yeah, I agree. Well, we could go back and forth a lot. You do just look at the chat to see if they have any questions. I did put the poll up. I did get a pity vote. That's encouraging. But currently, Charlie, with Never Ending Story being the worst sequel so far, is winning over JL at 29% right now. Patrick, you're coming in at 30. Patrick just stole the lead at 36.
Oh, get in!
All right.
Patrick's got his 15 socks on the case.
I think he does, because there's only 19 people in the chat. There's 28 votes up there. So, I'm just saying. Like, something might be amiss here. But, hey, if you're willing to go like that, that's cool. I mean, seriously, we're going to let them vote. But there's a couple of, let me just see what we have here for questions. I did say about a couple of different movies, since you all know so much about movies, and with JL here, and with us all being movie fans, they're asking, what about the Ghostbusters 2? What'd you think about that?
Wasn't the greatest, but you know what?
it was watchable. I will watch it. It was obviously didn't have the magic of the first one, and it tried to copy the first one. Obviously, the Statue of Liberty being the good version of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But it was all right. It was watchable. It was clearly a continuation of the first one. It was fine. You could build a better sequel off the back of it without ignoring it, I think.
I didn't see the second one, or the third, or like I know they've made a few. I only saw the original Ghostbusters.
So Ghostbusters 2, the biggest problem with that one was actually there were two major problems with Ghostbusters 2, and that's the first thing was the editing process. There was the film was too long. It was the production company felt that the film was too long, and there were a number of sequences that were cut out of the film that hurt the film's pacing. That was the first big issue. The entire sequence. There's an entire sequence when Ray is initially possessed when he's looking into the painting of Vigo, and it initially kind of like possesses him. That he has a whole freak out sequence when he's driving Ecto 2, when he's driving the new car, and he freaks out. He's driving through traffic and he almost kills everybody, and that's when they start suspecting that something is wrong with him. So there but that whole sequence was cut out. You get one little moment. And that's that was of Bill Murray sitting in the car going looking around like, what the hell? So there were a number of sequences cut out of that film that hurt the film's pacing because they felt those scenes slowed the film down too much, and because they wanted to be more actiony, because that was the curse of sequels. It had to be faster, bigger, more action, less plot development. Whereas originally Ghostbusters 2 was going to have the same kind of pacing and plot development and character arcing that the first film had. You'll try to do what the previous film did and do it better. But unfortunately, studios deals. And also the rumor is Bill Murray, for all of his talent, Bill Murray was not that great on set. That he wasn't a fan of the script. He wasn't really excited to be there, and that was overshadowed by the fact that Dan Aykroyd loved doing the fact that they were doing a second movie. Everyone else was just kind of there, but Bill was very much kind of like, and you can kind of tell because he and Ivan Reitman, there were difficulties there, but nonetheless, they tried and they kind of succeeded. It wasn't terrible, and we got kind of like some good one-liners, some good character stuff. Peter McNichol was great in that film. I thought he was hilarious. Studio interference and Bill Murray's kind of like growing attitude because of because he was getting older. Bill Murray's growing attitude were kind of getting in the way. He kind of got in the way of itself is the problem.
Yeah. Well,
since JL doesn't know shit about movies, I'm just going to agree with Patrick.
Yeah, we're just like, yeah.
Now the remake, now the Ghostbusters remake with the four girls.
Wait on that, because that actually, just the mention of Ghostbusters in the word remake gave me an idea for another challenge.
Well, it technically wasn't a remake; it was a soft reboot of the
franchise.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. When they go and they take the original movie and they just got to redo it, like they're gonna freshen it up for like 2023 and throw it out.
I give that. It was good for the kids. The kids enjoyed it. It was a slapsticky, visual spectacle. But the sequel, Ghostbusters Afterlife, was fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's really good.
It actually hit me. It hit me in the feels a little bit. I was like, "Oh, Egon." So it got me a little bit, and I really, really loved Ghostbusters Afterlife. But that's because it was in the hands of a group of filmmakers that loved the franchise and knew not only what the fans wanted, but what was true to the character so many years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people are talking about remakes now in the chat, and that's what's sparking me to think that might be another good challenge for us.
I think that's even livelier than sequels.
That and the villains that JL mentioned, right? Because we're coming up on the hour that we wanted to spend.
But so Charlie's right. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know shit about movies. So.
Oh shit, God, yeah. Like I just have to say, like this is terrifying to be here with you, JL, on the subject of movies in general at all, because but I agree. It was kind of brave to pick Blues Brothers, but it was based totally on feels. The disappointment of the whole thing for me as a viewer. Like I came at it, I didn't care about the technical aspects of it. It was more about just how just the fact that they did it and how it made me feel. And
Well, way to
it
go,
would have been
Patrick.
worse.
You woke up your family to vote. Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah. Did you wake up your family to vote, Patrick? We're almost done. Okay, we got 31 votes in. We'll give you got last words, Patrick. We'll give you some last words since all of us have been cutting you out because we don't want you to win.
I've got to be honest. I did vote on my Patrick account, and I do have 3 other accounts that I voted for myself on.
That is cold-blooded.
You couldn't give me a pity vote. Like, this is terrible. Like, oh, this is terrible. Okay. Anyway.
You've got to take 3 points off me, so clearly I don't win.
No, clearly you're tied with Charlie. Like now you and Charlie are tied. Charlie, you're doing fantastic. You have tied with our heavy hitters here. We had a video and the wordsmith. Okay, we had a top-notch video and a speech that was obviously prepared by a professional writer that JL just pulled and called and like got it faxed over right away. Like, you're doing great, Charlie. Tied with both of them through this whole thing. Like,
if I had had the time, I would have created a video as well. I could have easily done a quick video to what I wrote, to my argument. I had even little moments. I would have loved to drop and even like drop a clip of from Mortal Kombat 2, from Mortal Kombat Annihilation in there. I could have done a video. I unfortunately didn't have the time. So
if I knew how, you would have.
I'll give it to Patrick give it to Patrick for coming up with the video. That was that was solid.
That was solid. That's a solid argument, and visuals always help persuade.
I mean, he's wrong. He's wrong.
He's totally wrong. I agree. He's totally wrong. Like, totally. You hear that, chat? Patrick's wrong. Okay, continue to vote. But actually, if I had the time and or the actual talent to create the video like that, I would have done it. But that's never going to come from me. I'll just have to depend on my arguments and why I do something, because like those I like the visuals, but
I have great videos made in my head. I just can't.
Yeah, they play well in my head. They just don't seem to translate to YouTube very well. I just don't know how to do that. Well, that was a great video, Patrick. You really knocked it out of the park. I thought you were going to be a slam dunk just for that, but it looks like
John, vote for Never Ending Story 2.
Or
it's still
Exorcist
tied.
2, John. Or Exorcist 2, John.
I did it first.
I'm stalling here to see if the time, if the tie gets broken. Can you tell me if you voted in the chat? If anybody hasn't voted?
Come on. There has got to be some fellow hatred for Highlander 2, the worst sequel ever.
You're not doing bad. You got 28% compared to my 3. Like, it's not that.
Yeah,
bad.
but I'd like to be, but Charlie and me, I think have the best positions here, and we should be tied. But Patrick had to go and cheat. So
yes, we're stalling for time so you can vote, but at the same time we're allowing Patrick to create new accounts right now to vote for himself. So come on, people, help us break this tie before Patrick does it for us.
I will admit I'm probably in 3rd place right now. I'll admit that.
Wrote in no less name says 22 watching, 32 votes. Sus.
It is, Rody. It is.
I only did 4. I did myself, my 3 old accounts that I used to have. So I've only done 4.
I know that strategy. The best way to convince people a lie is not a lie is to admit a partial lie. No,
admit a partial
Patrick,
lie.
No,
I like
no,
it.
Partial. Oh yeah, yes. That's
I did
debate
17.
101. Yeah. All right. I don't know.
I'm still doing it now.
I don't know. This is a lot of fun. I think we should do another challenge. What do you guys think?
Absolutely.
Yes. What do you? I don't know, JL. If you don't win, are you still going to come back?
Yeah. I'll do it. I mean, obviously, all of these are ostensibly terrible sequels. The difference is that from my perspective, knowing films the way I do, I can look at these 4 films and I can see positive elements in Blues Brothers 2000, Exorcist 2, and Never Ending Story 2. I can see the positives there. I chose Highlander 2 out of all of them. Out of all the possible bad sequels, I chose Highlander 2 because there is not one positive thing I can think about that film. Not even Queen in the soundtrack could salvage that movie, and that's what makes it worse because the soundtrack is so good with the selection of film, with selection of songs they chose. It makes the film even worse because it's like, why does this terrible movie get these amazing songs? This film is that much worse because of that. So it had the opposite effect. So it's got to be it's got to be Highlander 2. Come on, votes.
Okay, he wants Highlander 2. In that premise, just to break the tie, I'm saying, like, you vote. The Highlander 2 was very disappointing. I kind of agree. And it was on my list. The one I was going to go with was Batman, the one that was just released, but it wasn't exactly a sequel. So I couldn't really do it.
A reboot,
but I had a lot. Yes, that's why I want the next challenge to be reboot.
I will admit I was torn. I was actually so I went with Highlander 2 because I couldn't think of anything. But I almost the close like runner-up selection for me was actually Silent Hill. Was actually the second Silent Hill film.
Sean Bean.
Because
was that the one?
Well, that movie was so god awful. I mean, it was beyond terrible. The problem is the one thing good they had going for it was the art department, the set designs and how they set everything up and the makeup and some of the special effects, some of the practical effects were really, really solid. The problem is it was CGI. It was supposed to be in 3D. The movie, it literally holds the crown as the only horror film I've watched in theaters where I fell asleep. Because it was so fucking boring.
Fell asleep?
I fell asleep watching Silent Hill. What is it? Whatever the freaking subtitle is to that damn thing. But so I had to watch it a second time later to actually see what actually happened. But nonetheless, I almost went with that, but it still had cool things to look at, like Pyramid Head and creepy, crazy, nasty Silent Hill style environments, which I really, really liked because the art department was on point. Just the rest of the movie sucked ass. Highlander 2 doesn't even have that.
Keeps changing.
Highlander 2 doesn't even have that because Highlander 2 is so darkly lit and everything is so wet and dank, and they have this like punch you in the face environmental message like, look what we've destroyed the earth and the sky is all freaking out. You can't see shit. So I can't even give the art department solid on that.
Right.
Stop the poll. Stop it.
I know you're saying that because you're winning right now, because just a second ago I was going to stop you. Patrick was somehow pulled out of the lead
because he's a fucking cheat.
Patrick just pulled out the lead, and then for second place you were tied with JL, perfect 33s, and now all of a sudden it's fifth again.
Give me a break.
All right, so that's it. Last minute, I'm going around. We're going to say last word. First of all, thank you all for being here. This was quite entertaining. It does appear the chat is actually enjoying it, and I hope that everyone on YouTube will too. It was a lot of fun. But we're going to have to wrap it up, or they're going to keep voting, and it's going to keep switching. I don't even know what the prize is. Oh, now we have a tie again. Oh, gee. All right. Patrick, last words on why they should vote for you. You only have like 20 seconds.
Yeah, because I'm a very lonely person with nothing else in my life, and
20 socks.
That's it. If you want to make me happy, please do that. I have literally nothing else going for me, so please vote for me.
That's hard. That's Patrick's 20 seconds. JL, can you do 20 seconds?
20 seconds why they should vote for me? Because I'm telling you the truth. Highlander 2 is the worst sequel ever made. It has no redeeming value. It shits on everything we loved before it, and everyone who was associated with it has literally tried to forget that it ever exists. In fact, the third film, doesn't even acknowledge its existence. It is a film that has been relegated to the dumpster bin of history, and I'm shocked I'm even talking about it because I couldn't even remember if they made this movie. It's horrible. So, yes, Highlander 2.
Okay. You know what? Just speaking in authority, I think you convinced a whole bunch of people right there. Okay, Charlie. You got some time. Why? Why Never Ending 2? Why should this tie be broken for you?
Because this is our childhood, Claire. This is our childhood.
They're ruining our childhood, aren't they? That's my argument also.
I don't need 20 seconds. This is our childhood, people. Vote with your heart, not with your sock.
Yes, I would say I don't know what the prize is, except for just to say that this was a lot of fun and it's going to win. But it does look that the one who initiated this actual challenge, by some miracle, no facts, is
I
the
have-
actual winner of this
No.
poll.
I've got
At
to pass that on to second place because I
34.
did use 4 votes. If I took my 4 votes off,
Wait a
Never Ending
minute.
Story
I
would
have
win.
to say something here. If you think Charlie wasn't on there with socks voting too, you're mistaken. Okay. So I would say don't throw in the towel. Fair is fair. We know who we're playing with here. I mean,
Yeah,
it's Charlie, it's Patrick, it's JL. You see who's in the chat. We all know the game here. Like, I wouldn't throw in the towel for that, Patrick. It was a great video. And actually, The Exorcist 2 really did stay. All of your movies were on my list. I mean, there are horrible sequels out there. All of them were.
I think we all chose good options. We all chose films that were absolutely god awful sequels that should
Mhm.
never have been made.
Yeah. But how's it feel to be a winner, Patrick?
Well, I mean, it feels new.
Don't get used to it. I want to do this again. Like, I'm not taking this lightly, people. I only got 2% of the vote, and I will be back. We're going to do more of these. Like, damn.
We have a rule going forward. No more sock accounts voting. Promise.
Oh.
If you vote, you can vote for yourself one time.
Yep.
I didn't even vote for myself because I'm the streamer. I can't vote.
Bullshit.
I can't. I can't
No, I'm
vote.
saying
That's
I'm
true.
saying that's a stupid reason not to vote.
But I don't have socks either. Is that another reason not to vote? But I did get a couple of pity votes there. I felt bad after I whined about it. I'll just whine more at the next one.
I have to agree. I have to agree with Icarus. 15 of the 17 people watching is actually Patrick.
Oh, Mrs. Cassandra said I won by default because you all cheated anyway. So there you go.
Yeah, we're all winners. We're all special.
Mousy, thank you
In
for
our
my
own way.
one vote. Thank you, Mousy, for my one vote. That's good. But anyway, congratulations, Patrick. We'll be a good egg and say, like, hey, that was a hell of a lot of fun.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for throwing this challenge at us. This was a lot of fun, and I hope you'll all be back for more. Their channels are all linked below. They do lots of fun content. Patrick has got a couple of other funny videos up there. You all know JL. He's amazing with his Week in Horror. And
I'm just a hatchling out here. I'm not even out of the egg yet.
his bridge. I'm getting to you, Charlie. His bridge divide. They're also linked below. That go check out and sub. Amazing content. And Charlie Welch, our beloved friend, and out here on YouTube with 40 mods, 40 mod wrenches. Everybody knows Charlie Welch. Okay, and he's going to be producing some content too. I hear a rumor. Is that true, Charlie?
Ooh.
Yeah.
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 I'm scared. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us how excited you are.
Yeah,
I'm like the monkeys in Zoolander. The files are in the computer.
the files here. His channel is linked below, and I mention it because he's going to need subs so that he can live stream and so he can get all the goodies, as well as Patrick's new channel down there. So go and sub and throw some to JL and I too if you haven't already. Please share it.
I just had a premiere today, so you can check out a brand new video that I just dropped.
Yes, please do. And you, like you said, you like the content, you like the idea of stuff. You want to see more from the four of us or anybody else on these challenges, send us all some notes, people. We like to hear. I know I do as a creator. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you like because we want it to be as pleasing for you as the hell of fun we had up here today. It was a lot of fun. So on that, gentlemen, shall we say goodnight?
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Good night.
Yes.
Good night, everyone.
Hey,
Yeah,
JL, be careful. The storms look pretty bad down there.
Yeah.
Will do.
I don't have an outro, so there'll be 30 seconds and then black silence. So I can thank my members and everybody for contributing. And thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I hope to get together again real soon. You know, all right, that's it. We're going out. Okay, you can all sing on the way out. All right, bye.
Scat man.
I see clouds of gray.
Oh my God, you guys are too much.
I watched them grow.
Oh God, I don't know when to hit the button. I don't want to cut you off. All right, bye.